Hello, Mr. Lechner. Today, I'm going to be talking about 19th century diseases. The 19th century was a period of immense social and scientific transformation, but it was also a time when diseases ravaged populations across the world. With increasing industrialization, urbanization, and also the expansion of global trade, new and old diseases found fertile ground to spread, often unchecked. The lack of medical knowledge, poor sanitation, and overcrowding in big cities created a perfect breeding ground for deadly diseases. Among the most notorious diseases of the time were cholera, tuberculosis, smallpox, and typhoid fever. Each of these afflictions left an indelible mark on society, shaping public health, policies, and advancing medical science in response to widespread suffering. One of the most feared diseases of the 19th century was cholera. Cholera was a bacterial infection that caused severe diarrhea, dehydration, and death within hours. It originated from the Ganges River region in India. Cholera spread through contaminated water and food, quickly becoming a global pandemic. The 19th century witnessed multiple cholera pandemics, with outbreaks devastating cities like London, Paris, and also New York. The infamous London cholera outbreak of 1854 led to a major breakthrough in epidemiology when Dr. John Snow linked this disease to contaminated water. His work laid the foundation for modern public health practices and urban sanitation improvements. Ultimately, this reduced the spread of waterborne diseases. The next disease I'm going to be talking about is tuberculosis, often referred to as consumption. It was another rampant disease that plagued the 19th century populations. Unlike cholera, which I previously talked about, cholera, it struck suddenly. Tuberculosis was slow, and it is a wasting disease that was characterized by persistent coughing, fever, night sweats, and insane weight loss. The disease spread through airborne droplets, making it particularly lethal in densely populated areas and among poorer communities. Romanticized in literature as a disease of the sensitive and artistic, tuberculosis claimed the lives of many, including famous figures like John Keats and Emily Bronte. The discovery of the tuberculosis bacterium by Robert Koch in 1882 was a pivotal moment in medical history. This led to the development of future treatments and preventive measures, though an effective cure would not come until the 20th century. The next disease I'm going to be talking about is smallpox. Smallpox is a highly contagious viral disease. It had been a scourge for centuries, but it continued to wreak havoc in the 19th century. It was characterized by fever, body aches, and a distinct rash that developed into pus-filled sores. Smallpox had an extremely high mortality rate. Those who survived were often left with permanent scars or even blindness. However, the development and widespread adoption of Edward Jenner's smallpox vaccine in the early 19th century marked a turning point in the fight against diseases. Governments around the world began mandating vaccinations, leading to a dramatic decline in smallpox cases and laying the foundation for future immunization programs. Smallpox would eventually become the first disease to be eradicated by human invention in the 20th century, thanks to vaccination efforts that began in the 19th century. The last disease I'm going to be talking about is typhoid fever. Typhoid fever is caused by a bacterium called Salmonella typhi. This was another deadly disease that thrived in unsanitary conditions or in poorer areas. It was transmitted through contaminated food and water. Typhoid led to high fever, abdominal pain, weakness, and not always, and it's not as lethal as other diseases, but sometimes, death. Outbreaks were common in crowded cities where proper sewage systems were lacking. The famous case of Typhoid Mary in the early 20th century, a cook who unknowingly spread the disease, highlighted the dangers of the carriers. Advances in sanitation, clean water supply, and later the development in antibiotics helped control the spread of typhoid fever. But in the 19th century, it remained a persistent and deadly threat. The suffering caused by these diseases spurred significant advancements in medicine and public health. The development of germ theory, pioneered by scientists like Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch, revolutionized the understanding of disease transmission and led to improved practices of hygiene. Governments began investing in more sanitation infrastructure, including clean water supplies and better sewage systems, which they did not have, which led to lots of deaths. Also, to combat the spread of infectious diseases, hospitals and quarantine measures were improved, and also medical research gained momentum, which set the stage for modern healthcare. So, in conclusion, while the 19th century was marked by devastating epidemics, it was also a turning point in the history of medicine. The scientific discoveries and public health reforms born out of necessity paved the way for the dramatic improvements in disease prevention and treatment seen in the 20th and 21st centuries. The lessons learned during this tumultuous period continue to shape global health policies today, ensuring that humanity remains vigilant in the face of emerging health threats, as we just saw with COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. Lechner. That's my presentation on 19th century diseases.